I spent hours, days even, coming up with the perfect prompt for ChatGPT to make money as quickly as possible in RuneScape until I finally settled on this. What are the 5 best money-making methods in OSRS with these stats? And I don't want to do farming, slayer tasks, or herb runs, and I want specific suggestions. Alright, look, maybe it didn't take days to come up with that. But the result? Zulrah, Vorkath, Barrows, Blast Furnace, and Revenants. I know what you may be thinking. That's kind of shit. And I was too. But still, there's clearly some untapped potential if an all-knowing AI is telling me to do these things. So I took it one step further. I asked ChatGPT how to complete the aforementioned activities for the best GP per hour. Now that I have all the results on hand, it's time to get started. We'll be doing each activity for 30 minutes at full focus, and then multiplying the final profit by 2 to get our final GP per hour. Let's get started. Here's a fun fact about Zulrah. It was actually the first boss I ever killed, so naturally, I kinda remembered it being pretty difficult. Thankfully, the Inferno had fully prepared me for this moment, and I was ready to revisit my old friend. Upon asking our AI buddy how to beat Zulrah, I was given this. Bring a gear set for both range and mage, and switch between the sets based on Zulrah's phases. If he's green, use magic. If he's red, use magic. And if he's blue, use range. Alright, fuck calling it ChatGPT, we're gonna call it GPT from now on. GPT also told me to protect from the appropriate prayers based on Zulrah's phases, so all pretty good so far. As a side note, it did say to use protection prayers while dodging the melee attacks in the red phase, but we'll just ignore that. So here's our gear and inventory. So we have full crystal with a mix of Arams and Virtus. For the weapons, we have a Sang Staff and a Bowfar, and we're bringing a Ring of Suffering. We were also told to bring some inventory items. So an anti-venom, a mage potion, which is interesting, and a ranging potion. I collected everything I was told to, and the kills started rolling in. Something I didn't get told by GPT and also haven't seen before, at least back when I did Zulrah. In Zulrah's mage phase, it randomly started doing Jad attacks. I didn't check the wiki for any news on this, but I had no idea this was a thing, and it blindsided me a few times. And I did take quite a bit of damage, but thankfully, no deaths. At the end of the 30 minutes, we had scored a total of 11 kills, equaling 1.01 million GP, and that was without unique. So our GP per hour at Zulrah ended up being 2.02 million GP per hour. So a pretty solid start to the day, and honestly, a lot better money than I was expecting from such an old boss. This was a fun one. Same as last time, I started by asking our boy GPT what I should be doing to kill Vorkath. Here's what I was told. Use Elite Void Ranger gear, which isn't the worst gear to bring here. Bring a Dragonfire Ward. I assume it's referring to a Skeletal Ward, but that's fine. Take Barrows gloves, a Rune Pouch, a Ring of Suffering, and Ava's Assembler, which is all really good recommendations, until I was met with, bring a Toxic Blowpipe using high tier darts. Fuck. Okay, not only am I gonna have to kill Vorkath with a blowpipe, which is gonna take 5 minutes a pop at least, I'm also gonna have to waste dragon darts while I'm doing it. On top of that, I literally cannot equip a Skeletal Ward because a blowpipe is a two-handed weapon. Here's an even better one for you. The Rune Pouch is not for Crumble Undead, it's actually for Vengeance runes, which means no Crumble Undead, which means I also got no recommendations on special attacks or how to kill the face hugger thing now that we don't have Crumble Undead. So I took some creative liberty and I bought a switch into BGS and another switch into Mage Gear with a Sang Staff, just kind of hoping that we'd be able to kill the thing. This idea did work exactly once, but I did get a combat achievement. There is something interesting here though, and it rhymes with Southwest Wake Spot. During Vorkath's acid phase, apparently you can stand in the southwest corner of the arena and be completely safe from Vorkath's attacks as well as all the acid. Both myself and my Twitch chat at the time were completely perplexed by this revelation. I scoured the internet to see if anyone had spoken about this before, and I found nothing. Was this it? Did I find the special AI-flavored secret sauce that was going to turn Vorkath into an extremely AFK hyper-profitable snooze fest? Let's get into it. Here's the gear and inventory based on our lovely recommendations from GPT. If we were going to make any money here, it would be because that safe spot is actually real. Here's what an average kill looked like. I walk in wearing my melee gear with Vengeance up, spec Vorkath with a BGS twice, switch into ranged, and start attacking. We go back and forth a few times until he goes into his first special attack, the Face Hugger. I switch into Mage, and it's the moment of truth. Will this Mage switch be enough to kill the... Yeah, no, that's what I expected. Anyway, we switch back into ranged and get back to attacking until we reach the climax, acid phase. It's time to see if this safe spot is real. I sprint to the southwest corner of the map and find that it is relatively free of acid. Vorkath starts attacking, and no. GPT seems to have been having us on. So in other words, this method was an utter disaster. I thoroughly do not recommend killing Vorkath in this way, and sadly, our safe spot was not real. With a couple of reclaim fees taken into account, our final profit comes down to 309,566 RuneScape dollars. Now this content is so old and not worth doing that I have literally never done it before outside of the recent mini quest. But considering it is so old and well documented, you would think that GPT would have some really solid recommendations for us here, and maybe even some more secret sauce. But spoiler alert, if you thought that, you were wrong. Firstly, according to GPT, we'll be using magic for the majority of our runs, which is a very reasonable recommendation considering most of the brothers are weak to magic. We were also told to bring melee and ranged switches, which I'll get into in a second, but also promising considering some brothers aren't particularly weak to magic. So the gear recommendations are full proselyte, including the helmet, which I can handle that. It's Barrows, but still, it's not very ideal. A trident of the swamp, an abyssal whip to use against Aram, and a Carol's crossbow to use against Carol of all of the brothers. I don't understand this, but apparently it's good, so we're just gonna bring it. Other than that, we'll need to bring Barrows gloves, an occult necklace, and a god cape. So again, more reasonable suggestions. Interestingly though, I got no recommendations for what boots to wear, so fancy boots. In the inventory, we're just bringing prayer pots and food, so nothing special, as well as a couple of stat boosting potions like super combats and range pot. As a quick add-on, GPT also said we can bring a rune pouch with runes for wind strike. I guess it's giving a recommendation for a player who's completely new to the game. Obviously this would suck, but I did actually do a run with it, and the only thing that saved me was the poison from the Trident of the Swamp. So you really shouldn't do this. Even with the poison, it took me 25 minutes. So here's the final inventory and gear. Let's get into it. I was actually surprised by how easy these kills were, considering the full proselyte. It's not very good for a mage boost, but you really don't need the DPS in content like Barrows. And considering the brothers are weak to magic, it still hits very often. And with the full proselyte, you can stay here for ages because your prayer drains so slowly. Even the Carol's crossbow against Carol did much better than I expected. I also had no idea it was a 3-tick weapon, but it was going hard. Look at this shit. So yeah, pretty normal kills in the end. GPT didn't say what potential to aim for, so I just killed all the brothers and a skeleton every now and then. I generally ended between 70 and 90% potential for a reward. By the end of the 30 minutes, I had gotten a total of 7 clears, worth a grand total of 218k, meaning our GP per hour is 436,000 RuneScape dollars. Considering the cost of prayer pots, this is shit. I really don't recommend doing this in 2023. This one's pretty chill. GPT told us to go to the blast furnace, pay the dwarves, and smelt the most profitable bars based on current GE prices. So it didn't actually tell me the prices, which means this all-knowing AI just told me to do my fucking homework. Turns out the most profitable is mithril. So I bought some mithril ore and some coal ore and got started. Here's the gear and inventory. I don't know if that's particularly helpful, but I did the blast furnace for 30 minutes. You heard it here first from an all-knowing AI. Blast furnace is one of the best money makers in old school RuneScape. I didn't have a coal bag with me, so making the mithril bars themselves did take a bit longer than it would for someone with a coal bag, but GPT didn't mention a coal bag anyway, so I was just doing what it said. In our allocated time, I managed to smelt 1,064 mithril bars, which is actually more than I expected. Those bars sold for a pretty lucrative price of 768,208 GP. The cost of ores to make that amount works out to 464,824 GP. So our final profit is 303,384 GP, which means that per hour you can expect to make over 600,000 RuneScape dollars here, which is actually kind of impressive, and as of now is our second best money maker. It's also really solid because you get a lot of experience doing this, and if you're not an account with 99 smithing, I don't know why you would skip this. You only need 50 smithing to make mithril bars, so it's a really solid method, and I actually do recommend this one, believe it or not. All right. I've never actually done Revenants, so I'm a bit nervous for this one. I've also never taken PKing seriously other than some LMS every now and then, so I'm not particularly confident in anti-PKing either. But I bet if you were, this would actually be a pretty solid method. Naturally, the first thing I did was ask GPT what to do. Turns out, the most profitable Revenants, according to our all-knowing AI, are Revenant dragons. So first off, GPT recommended I bring best in slot gear. I am not rich. hence I made this video. So I did not bring best in slot gear into the wilderness with a skull on my head. Instead, I trova parchmented a bunch of void gear and brought that. So it's still relatively high risk, but it's also pretty solid gear, so I felt like it was worth it. What it means is, if I die, I'm immediately down 4 mil in trova parchment. I also brought an accursed scepter, because turns out that's best in slot here. GPT also said to bring an amulet of avarice and a god cape. I didn't bring my imbued god cape because fuck doing that again. I just brought the unimbued version. Fight me. Lastly, it said to bring a ring of wealth and a salve amulet. I don't understand why it said to do that, considering it told me to bring an amulet of avarice. So I ignored the salve and brought the ring of wealth. I don't know, man. Once again, we have no recommendations for boots though. So I guess GPT has a vendetta against feet. So I decided to bring best in slot boots. Fancy boots. Now we're risking, boys. So I know that Revenants are relatively busy with PKers, and I also know that Revenant dragons are very deep past 30 wilderness, meaning I can't just teleport if I see a PKer. Keep that in mind for the future. Upon arriving at my destination, I killed a dragon or two, and I was immediately jumped by a PKer. Apparently, I'm a brainlet and forgot that I brought freezers, so this fight didn't last particularly long, and I was dead pretty quick. Considering supplies, ether, all that, I lost about 5.5 mil. Immediately. But that really isn't a big deal. I realized in post, but it turns out that I actually lost my fancy boots. But I was on a timer, so there was no time to mourn. We can do that later. I went and bought some mystics, a bracelet of Ethereum, another amulet of avarice, just kind of threw an inventory together and went for it again. After arriving at the Revenant caves at breakneck speed, I started fighting another dragon. I think I got 1 or 2 kills, but once again was immediately jumped by another PK. This time though, my Twitch chat reminded me I brought freezers. Thank you, by the way. And I was able to escape and log. Unfortunately though, that dragon that I was fighting, when I killed it, dropped 2 collection logs that I couldn't pick up. Fuck, I switched worlds, logged back in, and believe it or not, I literally took 5 steps and was logged on top of by another PKer who caught me while I had no supplies and ended my life fucking immediately. Because I had switched worlds, my prayers were turned off. And because I was jumped so quickly, I forgot to turn them back on, meaning I lost my accursed scepter and everything else. Fuck. -3 mil. Once again, still on a timer, so no time to mourn. I scratched together a new setup, just full of arams, a tried another swamp, and some other nonsense goodies that I brought. I didn't bother buying another bracelet of Ethereum or another amulet of avarice, just because I was rushing and kind of forgot to be honest. But the lack of an accursed scepter, an amulet, and a bracelet made this trip utterly miserable. Thank God I didn't get jumped by another PKer, but after killing 1 dragon, I literally could not kill a second because I had run out of supplies. Yeah, that was my inventory. I ran out of supplies after killing 1 dragon. I thought I could maybe get it, so I kind of stayed there for too long and I had 5 health and I went to escape. But on the way out, the second dragon killed me in what might be the most anticlimactic death in the history of old school RuneScape's Revenant caves. Deep in the wilderness for this, aren't I? You can stop looking at me now. Don't do it. I'm dead. -500k. Unless you're a PKing genius or are risking literally nothing, I do not recommend doing this. It sucks. I did not make it out of the caves a single time, killed like 5 dragons, and died 3 times. All of that happened in 30 minutes, giving us a total of -9.3 mil in 30 minutes, bringing our grand total to -18.6 million GP per hour. Don't do it unless you're rich or you're really good at the game. To round up, according to an all-knowing AI, the best money-making methods in old school RuneScape are Zulrah at 2.02 million GP per hour. Mything Mithril Bars the Blast Furnace for 606,768 GP per hour. Vorkath with a Blowpipe for 300,566 GP per hour. Barrows with Proselyte for 436,000 GP per hour. And lastly, Revenant fucking Dragons for -18.6 million GP per hour. Fuck, do not do that. Thank you for watching. Feel free to follow my Twitch, link below. See you next time.